At Barrel LLC, we have the privilege of representing victims and survivors that are oftentimes involved in catastrophic incidents that affect their lives.
If anyone looking for a personal and loving relationship with law, I would choose Bear Law.
At Bear Law, our goal is to turn victims into victors.
What's up, sports fans? This is Talk Culotta, presented by Boot Crew Media. Talk Culotta, where we talk a lot of sports. And a man that talks a lot of sports joins us today for about 15 minutes. His name is said on the radio as Matt Moscona, but the more common way to pronounce it is Matt Moscona of ESPN 104.5. After further review, that's AFR, of Scone and Tea podcast, of the Morning Scone on YouTube. This man does it all. Primary focus in Baton Rouge and LSU, but I want to give him a new perspective and start with a Saints question. But first off, my friend, I saw that awesome video of you and your son singing the LSU fight song. Absolutely awesome. Yeah. How's life in general? How are you?
Great. Appreciate you having me, Jack. Yeah, we football season is busy, but I'll never complain, man. People dig ditches and build railroads. I sit on my butt and talk about sports. It's a great gig. Football season, I mean, look, it's grind. It's hard to find family time, but I'm blessed to do what I do, and family's great. My little boy's 8 years old, and we've been through a lot of challenges, but people are always so nice and welcoming for me sharing him in our lives. So I'm always grateful for the love and support people have given us.
Yeah, man, I love that video. And I want to give you a chance at the end to just talk about like a charity or a way to kind of focus on that, because I just had to do some research after reading your hashtags, with regards to kind of the challenges that your son faces. But a family man, a Baton Rouge guy, a diehard LSU fan, but obviously, Baton Rouge's finest as far as sports media and talk radio goes. I do want to give you a chance to talk about some of your different hats, especially the hat that you wear when you get to sip on a nice glass of bourbon and talk sports with T-Bob. I love the intro that I heard right when the first time I really listened and sat down and, I was driving back from Baton Rouge, listening to Scone and Tea front, beginning to end. And it was something along the lines of you saying, this is Scone and Tea, where I make salient points about sports and T-Bob just makes ridiculous remarks, or however you said it. It was awesome. And it's so true. You guys are a perfect duo. But first off, I want to give you a question you probably haven't gotten, right? Because people hear us talk all the time. And a lot of the times we structure things or format things the same way. But I feel like even a Baton Rouge audience may not hear you answer a question like this. So I'm going to throw this at you. The Saints, the New Orleans Saints, are 1-2. We're coming off a loss to the Panthers. LSU with a big win, 38-0 against New Mexico. Pelicans media is today. Pelicans media day. Tulane took a tough loss and goes 3-1. All this happening, all these new coaches. Dennis Allen and Brian Kelly in particular, Matt, are guys that are highly respected football coaches, excellent leaders of football teams. What comparisons can you draw in the shaky starts for both teams? And obviously, I'm just talking about the loss to Florida State when I say shaky start for LSU, but the obvious shaky start going 1-2 for the Saints. What comparisons can you draw specifically on the Saints lens of things?
It's strange because I think the contrasts are more obvious. Mm-hmm. Brian Kelly inherited a very bad situation. Yeah. Dennis Allen inherited a very talented roster with some great free agent additions. We all know with Jarvis and Marcus May and with Tyron. Obviously drafted Chris Olave. That came up aces so far. The comparisons, I don't know that I see him. Brian Kelly's a 32-year head coach. Dennis Allen is a second-time head coach in his first go-round. Didn't go well. I don't know that the situations are comparable, except for the tough start. And Brian Kelly being a proven head coach, I think is already in a month shown you've seen tangible progress with LSU's team. With the Saints, it feels like they're still mired in the same issues that they're trying to work through. And I know that everybody wants to point at Jameis, and I'm like, man, there was no bigger drum beater for the Saints to sign Jameis 3 years ago, and no bigger fan of his potential than me.
Yeah.
But that was before he had a literal broken back. So, I mean, respect to the guy for the warrior mentality, but at the same time, when you're a detriment to your team, you got to tap out. Now, it's fair also, Jack, to point out, Jameis Winston didn't fumble the ball in a scoop and score. That was Alvin Kamara. Jameis Winston didn't miss a field goal or have a field goal blocked. And Jameis Winston didn't give up a slip screen to Laviska Shenault that went for 65 yards in the score. Yep. That was your defense and your special teams and your captain running back that made those plays. But it also is fair to point at Jameis and say the general malaise the offense has had is rooted in his issues. Now, if that's because he's not capable of being a great starter or because of the injury, I don't know. Time will tell. But long way of answering your question that I'm not sure I answered about Kelly and Allen. I just think that I don't know that there are many similarities between the two situations other than a rough start.
And staying with the Saints for a minute, Matt, what needs to happen besides the obvious Jameis getting healthy and using all the talent that he has on the offense just better, flat out, just doing a better job of working the offense in the first half of the game. Besides that, the defense gives up a 3rd and 14 from the Panthers' own 5 in a crucial moment in the football game. That's very unlike the Saints defense, especially when they're playing a not so high power offense in the Carolina Panthers. I understand Christian McCaffrey's on the team, but to allow that was very unlike the Saints defense. What else can you say? Just take Jameis Winston out of the equation. What else can you say needs to happen or needs to improve in order for the Saints to get back to what they can be?
Special teams. That's probably been one of the biggest disappointments. Will Lutz has missed a field goal in each of the first 3 games. Mm-hmm. Think about how big of an issue special teams were a year ago. Game in Tennessee, game in Washington. You lost games last year because of special teams. And we looked and said, man, when Will Lutz comes back, he solidifies this. And that has not happened. I mean, that has been anything but automatic so far, and that's disappointing. So that would be the most obvious to me. Listen, the 3rd and 14 you referenced late in the game, it's a great point. It's fair. It's just really hard for me to pin any of the Saints shortcomings right now on the defense.
Yeah. No,
look, Cordero Patterson had a great game against New Orleans week 1, like tip your cap. But you hold Tom Brady scoreless for 3 quarters. We can get into why that unraveled the way it did. Yeah. And then against Carolina, I mean, really it was just the slip, that screen to Laviska Shenault where he went 65 yards. I mean, that's basically all you allowed in the ball game. So, man, they got talent, Jack. I think we all understand that. The defense is a top 10, top 5 type defense in the league when they're right. They're going pretty good. They've got to get out of their malaise offensively. And, I'll tell you, I mean, I'll give you a for instance, right before the field goal that was blocked, they had 3rd and 3 from around the 10-yard line, and you had 38 seconds and 2 timeouts. Yep. If you go back, I actually screen grabbed this and tweeted it, but Alvin Kamara is sitting in the middle of the field wide open.
Yep.
Throw him the ball, get the first down, call a timeout, take 3 shots into the end zone. Those are the things where I go, all right, is that Jameis? Is that Jameis? That was the play where he threw the fade to Jarvis. That wasn't even close in the end zone.
Right.
Like, is that decision-making? Is that play calling? I mean, that's where we don't really know. We're just kind of like guessing outside looking in. But there are those things with the whole operation offensive that need to get fixed.
And just a final thought on the Saints, Matt. You mentioned Tom Brady and how that unraveled in the 4th quarter. We obviously all know about the fight, the Mike Evans suspension, the back and forth from Devin White and Leonard Fournette to this player and that player. I mean, a lot of LSU.
And by the way, that sucks so bad because, I love Leonard. I love Devin. I hate that they're in Tampa because,
I know them wearing that damn red jersey drives me crazy, man.
I'm like, why are you making me hate Devin White right now? He tears Jameis's ACL last year. Fournette's out there picking fights with Lattimore. I'm like, why are you making me hate these all-time legendary players?
I know. Jacques Doucet. Is it Doucet or Doucet?
Yeah, Jacques Doucet. Yeah.
Jacques Doucet and I are in the Tampa locker room getting some post game stuff, and Jeff Duncan's right there. Jeff had to write a column on Tom Brady, so he wanted to catch Brady for the 45 seconds that he allowed the media to ask him questions, and got a chance to talk to Leonard and Devin. And yeah, man, it's crazy that they're on the same team as Tom Brady, but them in that Bucs jersey is hard as an LSU Saints fan.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if Burrow had gone to the Falcons?
Oh goodness!
Like, I might never watch football again if I had to watch Joe Burrow in a Falcons uniform.
But just a quick thought. I mean, not so much on the Saints game in the fourth quarter and how the defense was only able to allow Tom Brady 10 points, really, because 3 points came off of a no yard, not one single yard gained off of interception, and then obviously the interception return for a touchdown. So it was really 10 points off turnovers, 10 points allowed by the defense. And then the Bucs lose to the Packers yesterday. Is this Tom Brady's last year? Are defenses finally figuring them out, or just the Saints and Packers just kind of have a good hold on him?
Oh, listen. I mean, Jack, my feeling on this Tampa team all year was that I thought it felt. You remember, like in 2011 when the Eagles had this, and they called it the Dream Team, and it was like Vince Young, and they went and got all these dudes who were in name like really good players, but I think maybe like Nnamdi Asomugha, like anyway, that might be a dated reference for those who don't remember. But basically, they were supposed to be this awesome team because they got all these dudes, but like they were all past their prime, and I think they went like 6-10. That's how I feel about this Tampa team. Like, respect Tom Brady's the greatest player ever. He's also 45.
Yeah.
Chris Godwin tore his ACL last year. Respect, he's trying to come out and play. Hurt his hamstring. He's not there. They bring in Julio, had the worst season of his career a year ago. They bring in Kyle Rudolph, had the worst season since his rookie season a year ago. I think they maybe still had LaShawn McCoy hanging around. I might be wrong about that, but he's obviously, I think he got cut. And then Ryan Jensen, your starting center, goes down. You lost your 2 starting guards, 1 to retirement, 1 to free agency. Then the guy who had taken over at left guard gets injured. He's done for the season. Then you lose Donovan Smith, your left tackle. Like, his offensive line is crap. His receiving room is in shambles. Like, what realistically were you expecting?
And Gronk's
it's more like the security blanket of Gronk is gone. They replaced him with Kyle Rudolph. Like, I mean, you're counting on Russell Gage and Perriman, and I mean, look, Mike Evans is a stud. We know that, and he's an all-time great. But he wasn't on the field this week, and he took another weapon away. I just don't think Tampa, their offense, I just don't think they're that good. They got a lot of dudes who their names, but they're all well past their prime. Yeah. And you mix in the injuries to Godwin and on the offensive line, and bro, it's not a good offense.
If they're going to finish as a top seed in the NFC, it's going to be solely because their defense holds everybody to 10 points. And they do have the capability of doing that. I mean, they're really good. So before I ask a LSU question and kind of what needs to happen to prepare for this big stretch of, away games of Ole Miss and Auburn coming up, and just kind of the progression of this offense in particular. I'm wearing a Burrow Chase shirt right now. The Bengals finally got their first dub over the Jets after starting off 0-2. As stacked as the AFC is, Matt, can the Bengals make the playoffs this year?
Yeah, for sure. And especially in that division. And I think they will. But I don't sweat. So, I mean, I know the numbers about starting 0-2 and the odds against making a run. I also think we probably, as sports fans, collectively got over our skis a little bit with the Bengals because they made the Super Bowl. I know that sounds stupid, but they were early. I mean, the Bengals weren't a great team last year. They got very hot at the right time, which is the beauty of the sport. I mean, I could bring back the Giants in 07 and 11, which were wildcard teams, went 9-7, got hot at the right time, had a favorable matchup in the Super Bowl, because of their ability to rush the passer, and they upset Brady twice. So it feels a little different with the Bengals. You thought they had sorted out their offensive line issues. And maybe they have. I mean, They had a tough draw the first 2 weeks of the season,
Yeah.
considering the pass rush they were facing the first 2 weeks of the season. So I just trust Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and all the guys on that offense to figure it out and get going. I think the Bengals will be fine. I mean, they're obviously not the Bills. I don't even think they're as good as the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But I fully expect that Cincinnati's going to be in the playoffs. They'll be playing come January.
What's the most surprising thing you've seen through the first 3 weeks? And obviously one Monday night football game tonight between the Giants and Cowboys that features the third of the remaining undefeated teams, the Giants being 2-0, the Dolphins and the Eagles, who are unfortunately quarterbacked by Alabama former quarterbacks. And obviously Jalen Hurts transferred to Oklahoma and got his butt whooped by LSU in the 2019 semifinal.
That was fun.
What's your biggest surprise?
I think probably the Raiders being 0-3. If you would have told me the only team through 3 weeks to be 0-3, that the Texans are 0-2-1.
Yeah.
But I would not have in any way picked the Raiders to be 0-3 through 3 weeks, especially with the home game against the Cardinals that they lost. Now, look, I mean, that was a bizarre game how it happened, and respect to Kyler Murray for making the plays he did. Yeah, Raiders 0-3 has got to be the biggest surprise. I'm trying to think of one. If they're, I mean, look, I probably Philly. I mean, I think I probably have to own up to this. I probably have to own up to this and say Philly, I think, is a good football team. That's pretty clear at this point. I thought Jalen Hurts his record so far as the starter of the NFL has been when he plays sub 500 teams, he's really good. When he plays winning teams, he's really bad. But they look really good right now. And
I mean, when you saw those preseason like power rankings, and predictions that the Eagles can make the Super Bowl and all these NFL analysts, I just had overrated going on, back here. But finish your thought, and then we'll go to LSU on the Eagles.
I picked Dallas to win that division. That goes out of the window, obviously, with Dak's injury. Right. But less. I think this surprises less about an injury to Dak and more about I think Philly's actually really good.
One of the most exciting games this past Saturday, besides LSU and Tulane taking a tough loss to Southern Miss, LSU obviously shutting out the New Mexico Lobos 38-0. Another team that scored 38 points, the Tennessee Volunteers, winning 38-33 over Florida. And LSU football looking ahead to Auburn this Saturday, followed by Tennessee, followed by Florida, followed by Ole Miss, then a bye week, then Alabama. Matt, is this team ready for this run?
Doesn't matter if they are or not because it's coming. I mean, you got to go play the games. I thought coming into this season they'd be 4-0 at this point. I did think they'd beat Florida State, but I thought they'd split October. I thought they'd go 2-2. I think they probably split the home games, split the road games, and I think what you do here in October determines what, if anything, you're playing for in November. And I don't think this is a championship team. Please don't misunderstand me, but if I told you, that is it possible for LSU to beat Tennessee in Tiger Stadium? I think so. LSU's a touchdown favorite on the road at Auburn. Is it possible for LSU to go on the road and beat Florida? Yeah. I don't know if you lost me there for a second.
I did. It's okay.
So I don't know where you lost, but I'll just.
You were basically saying, is it possible for LSU to beat Tennessee and Auburn? I mean,
I think any of the four games, Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, Ole Miss, I think LSU can win any of those games. Yeah. I think it's also possible they lose any of those games. This is just a team that, aside from Alabama and I would say, and obviously UAB coming in, every game they play is going to feel like a coin flip. And you're going to have some favorable results and some not so favorable results. There's going to be good days and bad. That's part of this whole building process under Brian Kelly. You just hope what you see over the next month is what you saw over the past month, which is from game 1 to game 4, LSU is objectively a better football team. And hopefully from game 4 to game 8, they're even better.
What's more likely, and I hate to frame it this way, but what's more likely to happen? Us winning all those games you just mentioned and losing to Alabama, or us losing one of those games and beating Alabama?
Losing one or losing all?
Losing one of the other non-Alabama games and beating Alabama, or winning all of the non-Alabama games and losing to Alabama.
So neither of those scenarios is happening. I mean, LSU is going to lose more. They're going to lose to Alabama and Baton Rouge. It's just, look, I'm very optimistic about Brian Kelly. I'm more impressed by him every chance we have to talk to him. He's just so clearly a guy with a plan.
Yes,
he's a guy with a plan, with structure, with confidence, who knows what he's doing, and he is enacting that plan and understands it's going to take a little patience. But LSU right now is not close to being able to beat Alabama. If they do, it would be an epic upset if they do. Yeah. Crazy things happen, so you never say never, but LSU's not ready to win a game like that. Every other game on the schedule, they're capable of winning, but they're not going to win all of them. That's the nature of a college football season, especially when you're starting two true freshman tackles. You don't really have a consistent running game. Your quarterback has been certainly your best player, but there have been questions about him, and decision making, his willingness to try to stretch the field. I think the defense is really good, but man, you've got major issues at every special teams unit. You have, while you're improving, you also still have a lot of questions that are going to cost you a game eventually.
Matt Moscona is brought to you by Bear Law LLC and Helm Paint and Decorating. Call 504-861-8179 or visit helmpaint.com. Use the code TALKCulotta to get 10% off. Matt, our Bear Law LLC tough question of the show is going to be, can you give me right now your prediction for the Final Four in the NCAA college football playoffs?
Sure. I'll tell you four. I think you'll have Alabama and Georgia. I think they'll play in the SEC championship game. Both will get into the playoff just like a year ago. I do think Ohio State will go undefeated and will be there. I don't see Michigan would be the team that could challenge, but I think Ohio State beats Michigan this year. And I'll put this might be a surprise to some, but I'll put Southern Cal in there. I think this week against Oregon State was the one where we talked about it a lot last week, Jack. But we talked about USC and about Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Their opponents this week, respectively, USC against Oregon State and Oklahoma against Kansas State. There's no team in their conference in the last decade plus that have given those two more trouble than Oregon State and Kansas State, because I don't know if you're a fight fan, but there's the saying, styles make fights. And for what USC and Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley and now continuing on, what they want to do, the teams that they played are physical, point of the attack teams that want to muddy it up, play a sloppy football game. And that style is not conducive for how USC and Oklahoma want to play. And Oklahoma lost to Kansas State, but USC managed to get out of Oregon, out of Corvallis with a win. The only other game on the schedule, I think look, upsets happen, so you never know. But the only other game on USC schedule that I look at and go, all right, that's tough. I mean, they do have to play Utah, that is going to be a tough game, but I do like SC in that game. I think their late season game against Notre Dame is going to be a giant challenge, because athletically, I think Notre Dame will present certain challenges other Pac-12 teams won't. But I think SC will go undefeated and make the playoff. Now I think they're going to get drubbed in their first game by either Bama or Georgia.
I was waiting for that one. Yeah, I was like, how is this going to align once they're in the semifinals?
They'll get hammered by Bama or Georgia. And quite honestly, it might be a game very similar to what we saw with LSU and Oklahoma. I don't know if it'd be that bad. That was just majestic to watch. But yeah, that's, if I had to pick it today, those would be my four.
Definitely one of Baton Rouge's brightest minds, and certainly Baton Rouge's shiniest head, Matt Moscona, joining the show today. And
you know what?
What?
I almost put it on before we started.
I can't see it. Grease that baby up.
Hey, bro.
Get it going. That light reflecting on the top of your head is just gold.
Well, whenever you do TV, you got to powder. So I do, the radio shows on TV, so I powder every day.
I love it.
You gotta
I love
do what you gotta do, bro. I mean,
Was that is that a quick plug for a product right there?
No, it's just powder. I mean, it's just
just regular old powder.
Dude, imagine me walking into Walgreens into the makeup section. I mean, but I do it, bro. You got to get your powder to make sure you don't shine.
Sounds like a TikTok video to me. You walking into the makeup section.
I'll let T-Bob handle the TikTok videos, bro.
Well, great segue into my two final thoughts for you, Matt. And thanks so much for the time, my friend. I know you got to get going. AFR 3 to 6 every day. Is that correct?
You got it. 3 to 6 Central.
3 to 6 Central. After further review on ESPN 104.5 in Baton Rouge, you can listen to it as I do after Gus Kattengale on ESPN 100.3 here in New Orleans. Again, that's ESPN 100.3. And if you're listening on Wednesday, I hop on Gus's show at about 1:15, and then, stay tuned, listen on the ride home with Matt. You have a shiny head. T-Bob has a lot of hair. Talk to me about Scone and T, what y'all are going to discuss this week, but just the vibe in general of your y'all's relationship.
It's actually very appropriate, though, that I'm doing this while we're talking about my relationship with T-Bob, because that's about as unorthodox a thing as you'll ever see in media, like me doing powder on the show live. So look, I kind of compare me and T-Bob to to Chris Farley and David Spade. If you think about the Tommy Boy or those types of references, one's kind of the big physical humor guy, the larger than life personality. The other's the kind of smart ass, sharp kind of guy. I mean, so it works. Our dynamic works. T-Bob and I get along super well, off air, off camera, whatever. Our styles are unquestionably polar opposite, but it's one of those things where because we're so diametrically opposed, it attracts basically anyone, because everyone who watches or listens is going to identify with either him or me. So it works. The style works. We've been very fortunate. The podcast Scone and Tea is something that I kind of thought up last year whenever Guaranty launched its own podcast network. That's our parent company. Yep. So, man, I think this could work because he and I were doing Whiskey and Wine, the post-game show starting last year after Jordy left the show. So, man, it's just the dynamic has worked, and I think it's partly his ability to do and say anything that is super appealing to people. They'll listen to hear what he says or to watch what he does next. Yeah. And I think I can kind of at least make him color within the lines as far as structure. So, yeah.
I mean, he is great for the podcast world. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to see him to enjoy y'all's dynamic, but also his obvious sense of humor. And so I love listening. I love listening to you guys. One other thing I wanted to mention to you was something that happened on It's Hump Day. What's that voice that y'all? It's Hump Day.
That's from it was a commercial with the camel and the
no, I know the commercial, but what's the girl's voice? Is that part of the commercial?
That's part of the commercial. Yeah, okay. The camel's walking in going guess what day it is? And she goes, It's Hump Day. Anyway, yeah.
But y'all had a 15 to 30 minute sequence on y'all's Wednesday show, and my buddy John Wallace from Out the Box podcast joined me on Saturday. We did a little game day preview, and he was talking about the longest yard reference when Adam Sandler says Appalachian State's a tune-up game. And now it's like Appalachian State is no longer a tune-up game for anybody in today's college football world because of all these upsets that they put on and game-ending finishes. But another Adam Sandler movie that you guys were referencing that just went on for far too long was Big Daddy. So I want to close with, speaking of you being a father to your, to talk a little bit about your favorite line from Big Daddy, and then also just your favorite moment of kind of being a dad and talk about, you know, your son a little bit to close out.
Yeah. I don't know how it was not 30 minutes. It was not 30 minutes, but we definitely had.
It was at least 10 minutes because y'all started the next hour and y'all were still talking about it.
Yeah, I don't even know how. Sometimes those things transpire and you go tangential.
The McDonald's scene, is that your favorite?
No, I would say my favorite is the scene in the bar with Mr. Hurley when Adam Sandler says he's going to throw him through the wall and he's like, he drinks lots of soda. That's probably my favorite. Yeah, man. So look, being a dad is it's the best job in the world, man. So our son Drew is 8 years old. He came into the world with a lot of special needs. We knew prenatally he was going to be really sick, so we relocated my wife and I to Houston, where they sort of specialized in caring for what he was going to be dealing with. So we ended up being there for 9 months. He was in the neonatal intensive care unit, the NICU, for 7 months. We spent 213 days at Texas Children's, and 3 surgeries in his first 5 days of life. To date, he's had 8 surgeries, including 2 open heart surgeries, about 2 weeks apart. But man, he is, he'll have his struggles and challenges, and
kids of
our normal is just different than everyone else's normal, but that's okay. It's normal to us. But he's just a blessing, man. I would say Drew's the best part of my day every day. So, no matter what, as a dad, if your joy watching your child get a base hit in a ball game or make an A on a test, for me, it's, watching my son pick up a little, biodegradable like cookie and put it in his mouth because he's trying a new texture. It's just a different thing, but it's the same feeling. It's the same emotion that you have as a dad. So we're blessed, man, because I realize there are many families that aren't as fortunate as ours. I saw every day in the hospital, and there's every day there were people who just who didn't get to take their baby home. We did. So I always try to keep that in mind and try to keep things in perspective.
That's awesome, brother. That's awesome. Matt Moscona of ESPN 104.5, After Further Review, Scone and Tea, and the Morning Scone. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's talk again soon, and looking forward to listening to AFR later today, my man.
Anytime. My pleasure.
All right, brother. Be good.